Confronting Radicals. The author and the man behind the film is my good friend David Rubin. He is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, in the biblical heartland of Samaria. David is the founder of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. It's an organization dedicated to helping Israeli kids overcome terror attacks and heal from their trauma. His most recent book, again, is Confronting Radicals: What America Can Learn from Israel. As you just saw, it's been produced as a documentary, and again, it will premiere tomorrow here at NRB. We'll be in churches throughout the United States this summer. Do not miss it. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, a true watchman, David Rubin.
Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you all for being here. I know this is supposed to be an upbeat event, a celebration of Israel, so I'm not going to focus too much on the challenges that Israel is facing, but I will focus on it a little bit. The terrorism that you witnessed in this film, at least the Palestinian terrorism, hasn't gone away. And when I was wounded, along with my 3-year-old son, when our car was ambushed by Palestinian terrorists, well, I thought I was left for dead. The car wasn't starting. I turned the ignition. I tried over and over to get it to start. My son wasn't responding to me. The bullets were flying. I had already been shot in the leg. I didn't realize that my son had been shot in the head. But eventually, the car started. And it started as if it had never had a problem starting before. I hit that ignition, I hit the gas pedal, and I drove 110 miles an hour to get to the next community up the road where I hoped I could get an ambulance. Thank God, an ambulance came. We got to the hospital, and we survived, both of us. The bullet had gone into my son's head, missing his brainstem by 1 millimeter. There's another miracle for you. And I got a call from the car mechanic 5 days later saying, "David, I don't know why we can't start that car." Now, I know I drove 110 miles an hour to get to that ambulance. And I know that we survived after that. And God had given me a mission. And as I saw the trauma that my son was suffering from, and that so many terror victim children have suffered from, just in our own community, but in all of Israel, and I realized that I needed to do something about it. God puts things in our hands, we're supposed to do something with it. And that's why I decided to start what would eventually become the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund for the purpose of healing the trauma of the terror victims and restoring some of that lost innocence to their lives. But to understand confronting radicals, you have to understand that there is a frightening reality going on in the United States as well. We have to understand the history. We have to understand the challenge. And you have to understand that Israel is the biblical nation, but that the United States is a nation that was built on biblical foundations. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington all understood that America, the United States of America, is a country that was built on biblical foundations. Jefferson and Franklin, speaking at the Constitutional Convention, used biblical imagery from the Old Testament biblical imagery describing Moses raising his staff in the air at the splitting of the Red Sea. That's how they saw the rise of the American nation. George Washington understood that as well. And he also used biblical imagery and prayer. So, we understand that. And then 1948 comes. The state of Israel is reestablished again. 1967 comes. The Six-Day War. Israel wins the war in 6 days, and on the seventh day we rest. And yes, I know the seventh day wasn't the Sabbath actually, but there is a message. God speaks to us in hidden language very often. So all of that happened, and we returned to the biblical heartland. So we have to understand that our two countries are bound together. Our two countries are bound together despite the riots that you just saw in the trailer for confronting radicals, what America can learn from Israel. And then if you look at the destruction of national monuments, monuments to American heroes in the United States, and being the biblical nation, coming to you from the biblical nation, coming to you from the biblical heartland of Samaria, the so-called West Bank, you have to understand that I know about history. And I understand that if America disconnects from its biblical foundations and from Israel, it is going to collapse. It's that simple. Without foundations, a building cannot stand. So it's important to understand that, and it's important to learn the lessons from that as we move forward. Israel has a lot of lessons, both from our successes, both from our mistakes, as with our first 30 years of socialism after the state of Israel was reestablished as a modern nation. We need to learn. We need to learn from those mistakes. Now, there's an interesting biblical passage in which the people go to Samuel the prophet. Okay, the leaders of Israel are concerned because the people are in an uprising. The people want to have a king to rule over them like all the other nations. Samuel doesn't know what to do. He turns to God, and God tells him, yes, that's what the people want. Appoint a king over them. But the king has to write his own Torah scroll, he has to write his own Bible, and carry it with him wherever he goes so that he will understand who the real king is. Now that message is a message for all of the leaders of Israel and the leaders of the United States, to understand who the real king is and to operate according to his guidelines. Okay, but again, as I said, this is a celebration of Israel here. And when we talk about joining together to bless Israel, we have to understand that only by working together can we defeat the radical left in America and around the world, because the radical secular left are working in collusion with the Islamic radicals. And obviously, as one who lives in the biblical heartland and has suffered from the terrorism, I know about the Islamic radicals from personal experience, not just from research. And I am telling you that we need to be standing together, because only standing together are we going to succeed. because the radical secular left on one hand and the Islamic radicals on the other hand are trying to bring down both of our houses. So we need to be standing together in these times. So how does one bless Israel? What are the best ways of blessing Israel? Number one, prayer. Pray for Israel. But not just some sort of nebulous prayer that, there are a lot of people who come to me and they say, I pray for Israel. Okay, but I'm sorry for bursting that bubble. I'm happy when anyone says that he prays for Israel, if he does. But pray for Israel to act in biblically consistent ways. Creating a Palestinian state, even hinting at giving away any part of the land of Israel, is anti-biblical. Number two, get involved. Get involved and elect political leaders in the United States who really care about Israel and are willing to take action. Okay, now we hear a lot of slogans bandied about. We hear about, we just heard it from the Biden administration recently, about the unbreakable bonds between Israel and the United States, about the values that bind us together, the two great democracies. Well, I got news for you. Democracy is very nice, but those aren't the main values that bind us together. The main values are the traditional family, which is thriving in Israel. The main values are having children and being blessed by children. We have an expression in Israel, Mishpachot Bruchot Yeladim. We don't talk about large families. That means families that are blessed with children. We don't talk about large families in Israel. We talk about families that are blessed with children. Okay? That's an important value that we have, the value of connection with God. And I'm telling you, in Israel today, there is no loss, no shortage of secular communities that are getting in touch with religious communities to find out more about God. It's happening. And yes, I know it's the opposite of what's happening in Western civilization, but I am telling you very clearly, okay, and this is a central premise in my book, Confronting Radicals, no change is irreversible. And what the radicals in the United States have been trying to do, the left radicals, the secular radicals have been trying to do for 60 years, since the 1960s, of undoing Judeo-Christian civilization, that change can be reversed if all of you get active at the grassroots level. Number three, education, education, and more education. Get involved, get on your school boards. There are so many people who are on school boards who don't have children, who maybe aren't even married. Get involved in the school boards and make change at the grassroots level. And get involved in media and get involved in everything that you can that can influence the younger generation. Last but not least, partner directly with those who are active in the biblical heartland of Israel, in all of Israel for that matter, in the land of Israel. Get involved, and obviously, I'm always calling on people to stand with the children of Israel through the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, in healing their trauma, in rebuilding the heartland of Israel, and together, working together, we can make that happen. So thank you very much. God bless you. God bless Israel, and God bless the United States of America.